Voting work in America. All right. Perfect. The Electoral College explained. That's what we need right here. So we can kind of understand what we got to do. This video comes from the CGP Gray, has 6.4 6 million subscribers. And let's see how the Electoral College works.
Americans everywhere cast their ballot for the next president of the United States. Except, not really. Americans don't directly vote for president. So what's happening on election day then? It's a bit complicated because of something called the Electoral College. To keep things simple for now, think of the Electoral College as the collection of 538 votes that determine who the President of the United States will be. Why 538? Because that's the number of senators, 100, plus the number of representatives, 438 in Congress.
I mean, y'all notice how many people that we got voted up there, but for some odd reason, we cannot get anything passed. We can't get nothing passed over there, man. Can't get nothing passed. But I digress.
Why are there 438 representatives in Congress? Stop asking so many questions right now. We're trying to keep this simple. These 538 votes in the Electoral College aren't given to the citizens directly, but are instead divided among the states. So how does the Electoral College give out the votes? Each state, no matter how populous or not, gets 3 votes to start. The remaining votes are given out roughly in proportion to the population of the states. The more
All right, so keep that in mind, all right? So everybody start out with 3. So basically they playing spades. They're playing spades. Everybody started getting the same amount of cards, but then when the Joker started showing up and the spades start getting passed out, that's when the game get interesting. And the spades for this game is the population for each state. Let's keep going.
people the state has, the more votes it gets. Here's a map of the United States showing the voting power each state has by making one hexagon equal to one Electoral College.
All right, so each one of these hexagons right here, as he said, is representing the power that they have. So it seems as if, and yeah, you can see that. All right, it seems as if Texas, where we are at, shout out to Houston in the building, but Texas as a whole, and seems like New York as a whole, pretty much the same. Like they just, you know, and that's interesting, but it's because it's a more denser population up there in New York, so that's why it's the same. All right, but as you can see, California is one of the major ones. So that's why you're gonna see, if you pay attention to how politicians, especially presidents, when they are trying to do what they got to do, like they are going to go to California regardless. They are trying their best to get to California. So the kind of sad and said votes are actually suggestions from us. Right. I agree, they are. Because when we get deeper into this, you're gonna find out that I don't know if they're gonna put it on here, but the Electoral College actually can vote against the popular vote. See, your vote becomes the popular vote. All right, so let's just keep going. It's about 4 minutes
vote
long.
for president. Because Electoral College votes mostly, though not completely, scale with population, it's also a map of where people live with a bonus given to the smaller states to make them a bit bigger than they would otherwise be.
So another caveat, if you are a smaller state, you also get a bonus too. So basically, if you have a lot of people on the population, you get a bonus. And if you have a smaller if you have a smaller state, then you get a bonus. So everybody get a bonus. It's like Oprah with the you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. Everybody get a car. So, okay, let's keep going.
In early November, when citizens go to the polls, they aren't voting for president directly, but they're really telling their state how they want it to use its electoral votes. 48 of the 50 states give all their Electoral College votes to the candidate who wins a majority in their state.
So out of all the states that we have, 48 of them say that they give whatever the popular vote is. So if they won it on popular vote, then that's what's going to make the color change to either red or blue or whatever you might have. Let's keep going.
Take Florida, for example, which has 29 Electoral College votes. If a candidate wins a majority, no matter how small that majority, he gets all the votes. So the path to the White House is clear. Win enough majorities in enough states to get more than half of the Electoral College votes, and you get to sit at the big desk. That wasn't so complicated, you say? Well, there were a few details left out. The Electoral College loves states, but what about the 11 million Americans who don't live in a state? What happens to their vote, and where are these people hiding? There are about 600,000 in the District of Columbia, an area set aside specifically not to be a state so that the capital of the country would be free of local politics. For most of the United States history, people living in the district didn't get to vote for president.
I bet most of y'all didn't even know that. I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know either. Shouts out to learning something.
Then, in 1964, the Constitution was amended to give DC the same number of votes as the least populous state, Wyoming. So the Electoral College likes DC, but you know who it doesn't like? The territories. The often forgotten Puerto Rico, Guam, US Virgin Islands, and Northern Mariana Islands get no votes from the Electoral College because they aren't states and they don't have a special constitutional amendment to recognize them.
Now that's crazy. The territories of the United States. But I mean, if you think about it, territories mean that you expanded and you took that over. So they don't really have to adhere to the customs because they're your territory now. You just own that area. So I get it. It makes sense. Let's keep going.
Which is a bit odd considering they're part of the United States and everyone who lives there is a citizen, so for most practical purposes they're just like DC, and 4.4 million people live in the territories. That might not sound like a lot, but it's more than the populations of Wyoming, Vermont, North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska, and Delaware combined. But still, no votes from the Electoral College do they get. The whole situation with territories is extra strange when you consider the final group of Americans who don't live in the states, the 6.3 million Americans who live abroad. If you're a United States citizen who moves to a foreign country, you can usually send a postal vote to the last state that you resided in. But if you move within the United States to one of its territories, you lose your right to vote for president as long as you live there, making these the only spots on the whole earth where Americans are not allowed to vote for president.
Did y'all hear that? You can go overseas and live in another country and just send it back. Man, this system is broken, man. This system is broken. Dude, like,
Did y'all just hear what they said?
so if you are in the territories, right? Basically, your vote don't matter. Your vote don't matter. And if you move from a state to a territory, your vote don't matter again. Your vote don't matter if you're in a territory that is governed by the U.S.
That's crazy.
But they just said it's more people there than there is in 4 states combined. This makes no sense. This makes absolutely no sense.
Actually, they're the only spots in the whole universe because American astronauts are allowed to vote from space.
Oh my God. It's the territories that we have are the only place that you cannot vote for the president of the United States or anything. That's crazy. You can be an astronaut and still cast your vote, and you can be in Puerto Rico. Come on, man. That's trash.
The last bit of Electoral College complication is the weirdest and has to do with the votes themselves. The state of Florida and all the others don't really give votes to a candidate. That's just a simplified way to think about it, because the reality of the situation is odd. What citizens are voting for on Election Day is a group of electors appointed by the political parties who choose the president on the citizens' behalf. The number of votes that a state gets from the Electoral College is actually the number of electors the state is allowed to send to a collegiate meeting to vote on who the president will be. What makes it odd is that while these electors promise they will vote for president as their state citizens want them to, they aren't required to do so. Electors are free to vote the way they want.
Boom. That's where this right here comes in. Voters are actually suggestions from us. Our votes are actually suggestions from us because it is. You just heard it. That's how it works. It ain't changed. Why would it? So you can say, hey, I don't know. Let's be nice. Let's say Kamala won Florida and be like, hey, he won Florida. And Florida be like, nah, Donald Trump won Florida. You feel me? That's crazy. Or vice versa. But that's crazy, fam. But that's the way it is. So does your vote really matter? Let's keep watching and find out.
While this has never swung an election, 87 times in the past, electors have voted against the wishes of the very people who elected them.
So 87 times in the past, they voted opposite.
Why set up this crazy system where a small group of people essentially unknown to the general public are the ones who really decide on the president? Because in the 1700s, when the Electoral College was designed, the quickest way to send a piece of information was to write it down on a piece of paper, hand it to a guy on a horse, wish him Godspeed, good sir, and hope he didn't get killed by Indians or die of dysentery along the way. Because information moved so slowly, and because the young country was so big, the idea was to send all the electors to Washington where they could have the most up-to-date information to make decisions for the people back home who wouldn't know the latest news. Though now, when we carry information on beams of light in fiber optic cables rather than on the backs of herd animals, this particular aspect of the Electoral College might seem a little out of date.
That makes perfect sense of how out of date our system actually is. Like, chat, I don't understand, chat. I don't understand. Like, it might not be an issue of draining the swamp, as Donald Trump said. It might just be an issue of outdated software. The government needs an update on their software. This is ridiculous. It was state of the art then. It ain't state of the art now. It is crazy right now. This don't make no sense. This makes no sense whatsoever. We need to have a U-Haul haul away of this old system. And the crazy part is nobody's complaining about this system loud enough to be heard. The change is still affecting it. But at the end of the day, it's rendering our votes almost uh, like pointless. It's like our votes are pointless right now, as long as these mysterious men and women, as long as they decide that they're gonna do what the majority said. But let's keep going.
Nonetheless, while most people think that the election for president takes place in early November, it doesn't. That's the election that determines who the electors will be. The 538 electors who are chosen then meet in early December, and they cast the real votes that determine who is the next president of the United States.
That was crazy. That was crazy. So basically, we got a system that need an update. We have a system that needs a serious, serious, serious update, man. I don't even really know. I don't really know where to even start with that, man. Like, that needs to be changed immediately. Immediately, it needs to be changed, because if it doesn't get changed, then it kind of gives the point for some people that don't want to vote, because really, like, your suggestion can be said, I'm just gonna do what I want to do.